Hi, my name is Kim Newcomer. I am a leader for Ramona Starr's 4-H sewing project. And I'm going to show you how to get started on your quilt. We're making a group quilt. Each person will make a quarter of the quilt. So you're going to get a kit. It's either going to have 8 by 10 or 8 by 11 pieces of fabric. In your kit, you're going to have thread. I'm just giving you a variety of threads. You can pick what you want to use. You're going to have a piece of paper that shows you what you've gotten. And then you're going to have your fabrics. You're going to have 6 or 7. Some of the kits had 7 different colors in them. So you can see all the different fabric colors. The very first thing we have to do is we have to decide how to lay this out. And I'm hoping that you guys as a team, the team that's working on the orange and blue star quilt, you'll get together and you'll decide how you want to lay this thing out. So let me show you an example of that. Okay? Alright, this is the fun part. You get to decide how you want to lay out your squares. So just start plunking them down. You're going to go 8 by 11 or 8 by 10. Just depends on which kit you got. So just start laying them out. Right sides up. And decide if you want to just repeat the pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8. Make any adjustments that you want. So look at it and say, oh, there's just too much blue down here. And when you're happy with that, now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have an 11 by 8. It could be 8 by 10 as well. Once you're happy with that, decide what's going to be your top corner and your bottom corner. And then you're going to stack these on top of each other. My suggestion is that you mark this as row 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to go left to right. This is going to be my top piece. That's going to be my bottom. So now I'm going to just take these and stack them on top of the one on the right. Got the stickies. I'm going to write row 11. There's row 11. And then I can stack these on top of each other because I've got the paper dividing them so I know where I am. And now you are ready to start sewing. Alright, now you're back at your machine. You've got your row stacks. I'm going to sort through here and try to find my first row. So there's row 1. I'm going to set the rest of that stuff aside. We've got row 1. This is the very one that was on the left, right? The upper left. And I'm going to look at my pieces of fabric. I'm going to decide what orientation. If you find some wrinkles in your fabric, just take a moment to give it a little iron. Make sure that the fabric is nice and flat when you're working on it. So these are my first 2 pieces. I'm going to take them off. And I'm going to put the top piece right side down. So this piece is right side up, the second piece, and the very first piece is right side down. I put those together. And remember, when I want them to open, I want them to look like this. So I'm going to sew on this side as my seam. Turn this, place it under my pressure foot up. I'm going to line up the fabric with the edge of my pressure foot, and then I'm going to drop my needle toward the end, drop my pressure foot, make sure I'm nice and lined up, and then it's very important to make 1/4 inch seams. So be very straightforward with your stitching here. You don't need to back stitch at the beginning or end. You just want to go right along, keep that fabric right under the edge of your pressure foot or wherever 1/4 inch is, and sew right off. There we are. Lift your pressure foot and trim that. Now there's your very first. Remember, this was number 1 and that was number 2. You can iron this right now. Just send the seam to one side. It's best if you figure out on the first row to always put the seam to the left. So you can take that and just iron that seam to the left. Nice and open. You can lay that out. It's a good idea to trim your threads while you're thinking about it. And then we go to the next pair. That's 1 and 2. So the next pair, this is 3 and this is 4. And you make sure you've got the orientation that you want. This one looks like it needs to be ironed a little bit, so I'll just take a moment to iron it. This one looks good. And I'm going to flip this one over the top of that one. And again, my seam is here on the left. So I'm going to grab that, get those seams lined up, get my pressure foot on the edge of the fabric, drop my needle first so I know I'm oriented right, and then stitch across. Now I've got my 8 across, and to do that, now I'm going to take 1, 2 and lay it right side down on top of 3, 4. So you've got that edge over here is going to be your edge that you want to sew. Get that lined up nice and even. Just take a moment. Get the left and the right even, and the edge. You can pin if you want to pin it. Drop the needle down when you've got a 1/4 inch seam and stitch. Trim the threads. Oops, didn't trim it quite right. What are you? There. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 now. And I'm going to keep pushing that seam over to the left. I'll lay that down, push the seam to the left, and iron that flat. I'm going to do the same now for 5, 6, 7, and 8. Is it this way? Or was it this way? I can't remember, so we're just going with it this way. Make sure that, oh, I can tell. You know how I can tell? Is by which way the seam allowance was pressed. So it's a good thing to press them. So it goes this way, which means it's oriented that way. So I'm going to orient my seam allowance over that way to the left, just like it is on that one and this one. I'm going to iron that. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to lay 1, 2, 3, 4 right side down on top of 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to get those edges nice and even. I've got a little fold in on that edge, so I'm going to iron it flat. Otherwise it'll make it hard for me to stitch it. Then I'm going to stitch this down. And you've got your very first row of the quilt. There it is. You're going to repeat that for all 10 or 11 rows you have. So you can put your marker on here. That's row 1, and you can set that aside. And then you can grab your next stack. There's row 2. And do the same thing for row 2 through 10 or 11. And then we'll work on the next step later.